William Frostguard Frost. Frostguard was pretty pissed. A fucking Jap was tearing up the boys. Damn tiger claws were attacking in the middle of the night with fucking ninjas. He had only seen the one. Just one, and a kid at that. The girl was fast. After Jack's shift had called out, everyone had grabbed a weapon, but Jack hadn't lived long after that. Good kid Jack, bit stupid, but he did right in the end. He put out the alarm. But now Frost had a fucking ninja Jap killing everyone. There were only 6 Strom left. Everyone else Frostguard had called didn't pick up. Hell, even Bite wasn't picking up. Fucking ninja already killed their netrunner. Fuck. Brick was gonna be pissed. Bite had been important. Not every gonk on the street can act as a serious netrunner. Stay close, he yelled out as he forced his eye-axe to keep aiming around the dark room. Bitch had disappeared as soon as the boys started calling out for her. Then she cut the fucking lights. If they were any of the other gangs it might have worked, but the spider optics the maelstrom chipped into every member could see in the dark just fine. Except, somehow she had disappeared. One moment he was staring at her as she raced off into the side of the garage, and then next his optics simply couldn't keep track of her, or more like she had simply shifted into smoke and disappeared. Fucking bullshit. Some sort of optical camo? He wasn't sure, hadn't seen any of the usual shifting from that. Where the fuck did she go? Rustproof called out and Frost snorted at the panicked tone as some of the fuckers lost their cool, firing blindly into the darkness. They were panicking. Frost realized right then that if he stuck around he was just as likely to get shot in the back as he was the front. He started shifting back towards the entrance, optics wide to look for her. She had to still be here, right? Maybe she had just deltaed once she got spotted? Possible, but Frost wasn't going to count on it. He had already sent out an alert, all he had to do was survive until the response showed up. Hey, where did stick shift go? Rustproof called out suddenly as he spun around, and Frost looked around, his eye-axe following his sight as he looked to where oil that fuck had been standing. He wasn't there anymore. Realizing what had happened, Frost let instincts from the war take over. He shifted and fired, shattering the radios that had been filling the garage with music the whole time. The music that had covered the ninja's assault. The sudden quiet was almost oppressive, and Frost, Rust, and the other 2 remaining Maelstrom all quickly gathered together in a group, guns out. Even if Frost and his eye-axe was the biggest piece among them, he sighed, realized they were all cluttering him because they wanted him to save them. Cowards. But he didn't know what to say, so instead of trying to take control of the idiots, he continued backing up towards the door. Hopefully they will be able to hear her now. But the garage was quiet besides the whispering and clanking of the idiots surrounding him. Fuck this. Frost kept walking backwards towards the door. Yet nothing was moving. Just a quiet that had settled on the garage. Finally he reached the door and with one hand burst it open as he hurried outside, the other 4 right along with him. Outside it was quiet, and Frost caught his breath for a second as he looked around. Oil Slick's post on the ground floor was knocked over as he had come running at the alert, but Frost hadn't seen Triggerfinger. He looked up, but other than the faint sound of his TV playing, he wasn't around. Dead then. Damn, she had snuck up on that old war dog? All right. Come on, stay together, you idiots. He barked as his little group had started splitting apart, but his call brought them back together. We hold out here. She can't sneak up on us here, we just have to wait for reinforcements. See how this ninja bitch likes trying her hand against 40 of us, he yelled the number. If the ninja was still here, hopefully the idea of 40 men all hunting her would scare her off. Even if it wasn't likely he would receive that kind of response. Hopefully the Jap didn't know that. Then with a few pointed fingers and barked orders, he had everyone in place. There were only 2 ways out of the garage, well 3 if you counted the massive roller doors. Otherwise it was the roof, and the ground floor door that they had just walked out of. She was trapped in there. All he had to do was keep the place secure until more guns showed up. At least that is what he thought. He turned around to look over everyone, making sure everyone was where they should be. When a gunshot startled everyone as the gonk he had sent up onto the roof to watch the roof access came falling off the edge of the roof, falling with a splat as he had a massive hole in his chest. Damn gonk. He cursed him for being stupid enough to get shot. His eye-axe came up and peppered the roof, causing the others to join him. If she was up there, they only had to hit her once. 4 maelstrom unloading on the roof had to be enough. He flipped his empty magazine out and grabbed his spare from his jacket pocket. He would be out after this. Damn it. He wasn't exactly loaded for war while he had his feet up inside the safe house. Anyone see her? He roared, which slowly caused everyone to stop firing as they all reloaded, but all he got back was shaking heads. Well, don't just stand there. Go. He was cut off as a gunshot rang out, one that he recognized this time. Triggerfinger's sniper rifle. Fuck. One of the boys, head still shaking, suddenly only had a spray of blood in place of his skull. Slowly he flopped down onto the ground. Axe raised, he started firing towards where the gunshot had come from, but as his round bounced off concrete he realized what had happened. The bitch. She was shooting through the walls. She's shooting through the walls. Move. Don't stand still. Her optics can't lock you if you keep moving, he roared out, and it was only barely enough to save Oil Slick as he shifted and moved just in time for a round to punch through the wall of the garage. The bitch had gone back inside? Fine. He roared as he rushed back into the door. He wasn't going to stand around and get ripped apart. If she was running around with an Ekamoto, it would slow her down. They weren't exactly the most mobile weapons considering how long and heavy they were. He kicked the door back open, his optics again cutting through the darkness as he searched for her. A flicker of movement and he opened fire. His eye sparked again and again as he filled the area with bullets. She disappeared again, jumping behind the van as he stopped firing, waiting for her to appear only to realize she had somehow vanished. Hey gonks. She is on the run, stay together, he roared through the walls as he rushed not to follow her, but to the little office he had taken over when they claimed this old garage as a base. He keyed open the door and slipped inside, quickly grabbing his old vest that had his extra mags and slipped into it, all the while shifting around to make sure she couldn't pop him through a wall. Of course, a moment later gunshots started echoing around. Tiny blips of his buddy's pea shooters, and the big echoing retorts of the Nekomata. He ran to get back outside, but by the time he kicked the door open again it was quiet. They were dead. Oil Slick well on his way to being an oil stain as he bled out. Bitch. Come on then. You've cut down these gonks. You think you're hard? They are chaff. I'll rip you apart, he roared out as he kept moving, searching for her. How does one ninja Jap do this? Kill his entire squad? He really wished his reinforcements would show up already. It was pure luck in the end, the faint hint of something glinting in the corner of his optics. He immediately dove into a roll, bringing up his axe and firing. The shot from the Nekomata missed him by inches. She was back on the roof, hiding in Triggerfinger's little shack. He lit it up, not stopping the automatic fire until his mag was empty, and he quickly reloaded and started firing again. Nothing. He waited, unable to see well if she was still in there, but not willing to climb the ladder that would take him up to the roof. He waited, and it was only when his optics spotted blood that he started to relax. Gosh yaha bitch? He called out with a chuckle as he kept his rifle up. Never relax until the body is confirmed dead. Usually with a double tap. But with how many rounds he had punched into the little shack, she would have to be dead. Surely. A gunshot, and he grunted back as the round slammed into him, his subdermal and chest rate barely stopping the round from blowing a hole through him, but it still knocked him on his ass. He rolled, instantly rushing for cover. How the fuck was she still alive? How are you still alive? He roared, rising and once more unloading a magazine into the shack. This time he didn't stay still. Using his gunfire to keep her pinned as he climbed up onto some of the old oil barrels that had been laying around since before they moved in. He kept firing as he rose up, enough to actually see into the shed even as he continued firing into his mag emptied. He looked in. Where was she? Triggerfinger was there, looking pretty awful thanks to all the rounds that had ripped through him, but he didn't see the ninja. Wait. Wait. If Triggerfinger was dead, why was there an arm sticking out from his body pointing a handgun right at Frost? The round punctured through this time. His vest wasn't able to stop a second high-caliber round, and his subdermal failed. He died before he hit the ground. Dash. I coughed up blood as I pushed the corpse off me. Ow. I whined as I poked the multiple holes in me. Most of them in my legs, one unfortunately in my chest where my poor leotard had finally given up, unable to stop the bullets. Unfortunately, while I was small enough to hide behind the bulk of an armored Borg as rounds hammered into my hidey hole, even the Borg's armor had to give up eventually. A few rounds penetrating few had slammed into me as the fucker with the eye-axe just kept on firing. Jerk. I yanked my med pocket open and grabbed a Mac stock. Quickly inhaling it, I instantly felt better. That was the second one I had to burn. I reminded myself. I only had one left on me. This last Borg was way more skilled than I expected. Plus he had actually taken an Ekamata round to the chest, even if I hadn't had time to charge it up. It had just been a normal round, which was the only reason he hadn't died. I grunted as I pushed the corpse off me. Thanks, Choom. I told him despite how horrible his corpse looked now, he had really saved my tail. I really like it more when I just kill them all without them noticing. I grumble as I grab the fallen Nekomata and head towards the side of the roof. I winced a bit as I dropped down to the ground level. My legs still sore. I guess one Mac stock didn't cover everything. I thought about using another, but I wasn't bleeding anywhere. Better to save it. I sighed. As much as I wanted to call Ichi and try to have him come help loot this place to the bedrock, I knew I didn't have time. The Strom leader had mentioned he had called for help. Quick loot Motoko, I told myself with a deep breath as I quickly ran to the first body. As my hands danced through pockets, I called my car, which drove from down the street to stop in front of the open gate. I grabbed the guns and anything else I could find and hold in my arms as I raced to the car and dumped it into the passenger seat before rushing back for more. 2 runs to grab everything outside, and I headed in. Considering the time limit, I raced upstairs first. Netrunner was #1 priority. I wanted to see if he had any netrunning stuff. As soon as I hit his body, I unfortunately gave up on stealing his netrunning suit. I didn't have time or desire to strip a corpse like that right now. Instead, I started popping shards out of his skull, passing them into my pocket. I did check his skull and he did indeed have a net deck. I considered yanking it. I could. It would take a few minutes, but I could totally do that. But something about ripping chrome right out of someone's body, it didn't sit right with me. If I had more time, maybe I would call in the cavalry and they would probably do some ripping, but I let it go. Instead, I focused on his gear. I plugged into his computer and yanked the data into a shard. I would go over it later, but hopefully it would have some information on where I could find the Spider Ripper, and the bastard. Then as I started grabbing more goodies, I heard an engine outside. Instantly I went cold as I dropped everything and headed back to the roof. Whoever was showing up was about to get ripped apart. I had only heard one engine. That meant the numbers were doable. More loot? More loot. I crept along the roof. Whoever it was walking around the courtyard. They were slow, cautious. I couldn't hear any conversation, and only one set of footsteps crunching into the gravel. Only one? Well, it didn't matter. I reached the edge, but I missed them by a second. They had just walked into the building below me. I went full cold just so I wouldn't make a grunt of pain and dropped, falling into a silent crouch just outside the door. My katana was already flashing, red edge arcing through darkness to give me just a few more points of XP. I stilled. My breath came out in a soft pant. June? I cried out, causing him to jump practically out of his skin, his own katana coming up to as if to defend, only to realize I was standing literally behind him, my katana inches from taking his head. June shrieked in a hilariously girly voice, but once he realized who it was, he gasped in shock. Motoko? Gonna remember that one for later. That scream was hilarious. But now wasn't the time for that. Because June's face hardened and he was glaring now. Motoko, what do you think you are doing? Murder? I answered honestly before my mind could catch up with my mouth. I clamped my mouth shut as my answer seemed to knock the wind out of June's anger. I looked around, knowing he must have already seen all the dead bodies. All the people I had murdered. We were both silent, staring at each other for a moment before I lowered my shoulders, sheathing my katana. Okay, let's be honest. I mean, is this even the worst thing you ever caught me doing? I asked, hoping my former pre-coma self really was the hellion I suspected she was. June did not in fact agree. His exasperated expression only lasted a moment before it turned to anger. What are you thinking? What are you even doing? You could have died. You are still recovering. You are. What? Chasing Maelstrom around the city? He roared after a sound of pure frustrated anger as he turned and hammered a fist into the wall of the garage. The poor garage did not stand up well. How did you even find me? I interrupted his battering of the poor garage. I followed your tracker. What else would I do when you sneak out in the middle of the night? I blinked. I have a tracker? I frowned. That was not okay. Of course Okasan gave us both trackers when we were kids. He answered, simply going silent for a moment at the mention of our mother. You don't remember? I felt my lips down into a frown. The idea that I had some tracker in me was. I really didn't like it. At the same time, it wasn't June's fault, so I just breathed it out. I would get back to that later. Before I could even start on what was next though, we both heard it, engines. We need to go. Let's run. We both said to each other before rushing towards the exit. The engines were too close. By the time we hit the gate, we both realized what happened. Slowing to a stop, surrounding my car and June's bike, both blocking the entrance to the gate, were 3 Maelstrom trucks. Already I could see the red-eyed Borgs climbing out to look around. Cover me, I called out as I rushed forward. Boy had drawn and aimed, and only when they noticed me did I fire. 3 rounds echoed, sending Borgs scurrying as I rushed to my car. While my shots had sent a few running for cover, a few of the Borgs were starting to aim at me, so I did the smart thing. I put up my arms to guard my face and jumped into the still open passenger door, ignoring the stray bullets slammed into my arms. I reached down under my passenger seat for a box that I had filled from the Raffen raid, and never really used. Popping it open, I started grabbing grenades. I glanced out the door, seeing June in full rage mode as he offhanded a Shingane, a smart SMG that I didn't even know he had. It must collapse down or something. Still, he was shooting mini missiles into the crowd, roaring and drawing attention. Stupid June, he was gonna get shot doing that. I flipped the switches, pressed the buttons, or pulled the pin for the grenades as I started chucking them wildly out of the car towards the Maelstrom trucks. It took a moment, and then the explosions started going off, and the screams and cries of dying Maelstrom finally overrode the sound of gunfire. I turned back towards June to tell him to get on his Kusanagi and get out of here, but he had already unsheathed his katana and was going wild on the now utterly disrupted Maelstrom. One of their trucks was burning from an incendiary grenade, highlighting the fight as he rushed in and started cutting. Well, if he wanted to murder all of these Maelstrom, I wasn't going to be left behind. I slipped out of my car, katana drawn, and moved. Quickly leaping up onto the hood of my car and then forward to cut the arm off a Maelstrom gong, aiming a shotgun at June. The thermal blade cut right through, and his head was parted a moment later before he could even scream with a casual swipe. Then I was among them, and between June and I? The grenades having thrown them around, killing or maiming? It was V to a scythe. June drew their eyes, the Oni. I could practically taste their terror as he kept among them, not letting them get any clear shots as he cut them into pieces with pure power. While that happened, I ghosted them. Heads parted from necks, limbs were lost suddenly, and then lives a moment later. While I did get shot again, this time in the back, the fucker lost his arm and then head a moment later. While June was just tanking everything. By the time I caught up to June, it was over. He was dueling a large Borg with a nasty-looking sawn-off shotgun fit for a cyborg, and a chainsword of all things, trying to keep June from bisecting him. Unfortunately, I don't believe in honorable duels. The Borg died in moments after my katana surged out the front of his neck as I stabbed him through his spine. My face a rictus grin as I managed to kill steal from June. I was laughing, my cold breaking as June practically jumped at my sudden appearance once again. I could see him instantly look around, but I threw him a thumbs up. I confirmed kills on everyone else. We're clear, I told him. His eyes continued to rove around as if he didn't fully believe me, which was fair, always good to verify yourself. But yeah, I killed them all. The fools half blown up by grenades. The ones desperately trying to run. The gonks that tried to attack me. I cut them all down. Between the fires and June it was easy. They were so shell-shocked I waltzed through them like a ghost. We should probably grab what we can and go. I told him, only to see he wasn't just breathing hard but actually wincing. I quickly pushed in and with deft fingers found the problem. Right through the subdermal. I told him after got his hands away from the bullet hole in his thigh. Thanks, I hadn't noticed. He growled a bit, but a moment later he had a Macstock in his mouth. "Take that, and hop in the car. Send your bike home without you, you can't drive like that. It's a bullet hole. I can ride just fine," he grumbled, but I wasn't having any of that and quickly pulled him along his limping steps, unable to resist as I pulled him towards the passenger seat of my ride. I winced a little at how much junk was now strewn across it, but he sighed and settled in as I threw a roll of bandages I had in my medical pouch at him as I raced back to the driver's side. "Buckle up," I reminded him as I hammered the gear and hit the gas, instantly roaring down the street, causing June to yelp as I absolutely floored it. Had to get June back to the dojo. He was bleeding. "Slow down." "No," I barked back as I zipped through the city, absolutely flooring my engine. The mostly empty streets thanks to all the shootings meant I rarely had to slow for traffic, and so I raced through the city more like I was playing, well, Cyberpunk. Well, if the driving in the game was any good anyways. "Please slow down," he begged as I came up to a red light with a bit of traffic. We were in a busier section, lots of bars and clubs around here, and even with a gang war people were still partying. His pleading switched to Japanese and I honestly couldn't keep up, as I slipped in between two cars idling at the red, flowed into a drift, barely sliding right behind a truck, my front bumper almost kissing the rear of the bumper before I slipped around the truck and cut in front of it before flooring it, disappearing down the street with a roar of my Quadra's engine. "Please, please, please slow down," he begged, and I scoffed. We were almost there. Just a few smaller side streets that were covered in little shops. Most were closed and empty. I didn't even slow down as I flew down the darkened street. The few people I could see hearing me coming and getting out of the way. Which was smart. I came around the corner of the dojo in a rush and only slowed a tiny bit as I drifted down into the parking garage for the apartment complex. I quickly found a space and slowed to gently park into one close to the elevator to the first floor. "Come on, June, let's get you to your Ripper," I told him as I jumped out of the car to run around towards his side. He was already climbing out when I reached him, and as I tried to get close to help him, his hand reached out and pushed my face away. "June. Motoko. Stop smothering me. Also, you are never allowed to drive again. Ever," he told me as he started walking just with a hefty limp towards the elevator. "That's not fair. I'm pretty good at driving." Terrifying. "Everyone complains about me driving slow, but when I actually drive fast you complain too," I argued as I kept with him, happy to use the conversation to keep him distracted. "That's because no one knows how terrifying you driving fast is. Where did you even learn to drive like that?" "Playing around mostly," I answered truthfully. "From a certain point of view." Terrifying. He deadpanned as he rested back against the elevator, seemingly exhausted. "Oh. Right. June had been awake all day, fought with me. Fought during the kamikaze raid, and then chased me out too. Dang. I actually felt super sorry for him now. Let's get you into the Ripper and get you a nap. You look tired," I told him as I sidled up to him, resting my head on his shoulder for a moment. "I wonder why that is?" he snarked at me, seemingly too tired to get angry. "Ha, I guess Sleepy June is Snarky June." I opened my mouth to respond but closed it. I hadn't really needed June, but I understood it was difficult for him to understand just what I could do. What a gamer was capable of. "Thanks for coming to help me, June. I promise I won't run off in the middle of the night again. I'll let you know when I go out, so well, you'll probably still worry, but at least I won't just vanish on you." June's hands clenched but then loosened. "When you killed that last Strom, you were laughing." "Yeah. I was having fun. We work well together. You just need to work on getting shot less," I told him, resisting the urge to poke at him with a finger. He was injured, so I wasn't going to poke his bullet wounds. That would be rude, even if the urge to mess with my brother was almost irresistible. "I didn't believe you before. When you said you enjoyed it." I scratched at my cheek, a bit embarrassed as June was staring at me as the elevator came to a stop. "Yeah, well, I guess it's just one of those things. I'm good at it. Plus I have my own reasons to enjoy killing them." "Yeah." He was quiet as he hobbled out, my attempts to help more getting in his way than really helping. As I tried to get him to the window that we could climb out of. It was a bit difficult, but we managed to get him through, and the vendors on the other side quickly noticed and actually helped out, not saying a word as they took an arm and helped June into the dojo's side entrance and downstairs into the Ripper clinic. What the? Kusanagi? The female Ripper was sitting at a chair and jumped up when June was carried in. She took a moment to look me over as well. I was still covered in blood, but I waved her towards June and she didn't need any further prompting to ignore me. He was settled onto the Ripper chair, and she went to work cleaning the bullet holes, and starting to work. I settled onto a normal chair nearby and decided to hang out. It wasn't like I was gonna do anything but go take a nap when I got back to the room anyways. Might as well make sure June is okay. June basically started napping as the doc worked. She was alright, but she didn't have that amazing deftness that Vic had. I really should have just hauled him to Vic's. Kusanagi. A voice called out just as soon as the door opened, and Fujimura stomped in. The guy was a bit bleary-eyed, and his hair was messy. I guess someone woke him up. Fujimura-sama. June responded, his eyes snapping open, and he made to sit up only to be pushed down by the doc. Stay down while I work, she demanded, glaring before giving a sitting bow to Fujimura, seemingly letting him know he could continue. I didn't set up any further raids. The battle was over. I thought I was clear that you were supposed to be resting. Now I find out you went out and got injured. You damaged not just yourself, but the kamikaze. Explain. He barked, stomping up to June, and I got the feeling he was only seconds away from dragging June out of the chair by his. Well, June didn't have a shirt on, but the same idea stood. June of course spoke quickly, before I could. Apologies. A family matter came up. Fujimura instantly looked to me, his eyes glaring and face full of rage. Of course I wasn't impressed. Bedhead wasn't exactly intimidating. You once again caused trouble. I didn't do anything. June was just being overprotective and decided to fall. I was cut off as the man actually backhanded me. He hit me. It almost knocked me right out of the chair considering how strong he was. I could practically feel a tooth loosen as well as I sat back up. I wiggled my jaw a bit and spit out some of the blood onto the floor. Stupid idiot made me bite my cheek. I went cold. No, I went Arctic. I caught his eyes and held them as I spoke. You strike me again, and I'll take the hand. He watched me for a moment before snorting. Accept your punishment with grace. You damage the kamikaze with your foolishness? You receive a reminder. Your brother is important to the Tiger Claws. Important to kamikaze. You were brought here by our kindness, but that is twice now you have cost the kamikaze. Fujimura-sama. Motoko is my sister. She is not yours to discipline. June growled. He had sat up when I was struck. Much to the irritation of the doc. Then ensure that she does not damage the kamikaze again, and I will not feel the need to interfere in family affairs. The man barked back without any give. Motoko did nothing wrong. Fujimura-sama. It was my own weakness that led to injury, June said, barely keeping his voice from an angry bark as he glared up at the Borg. The man finally turned from my stare, which was dangerous of him. I was still figuring out whether dismembering him would be the best way to get my point across. I expect a fast recovery, Kusanagi. The kamikaze have work to do, he finally said after a few moments of imperious glaring, before he stomped out of the room. June. Your boss is an asshole. I finally told him, which caused my brother to slowly lean back onto the chair with a groan. Once June was fully fixed up, he fell asleep with a few meds from the doc. Considering he was passed out and practically drooling, I decided to head back to the apartment. But not before taking a picture of his drooling face. Blackmail get. The silliness helped soothe the irritation and the pain of my cheek. I walked into the apartment and only once the door closed did I sigh. I was still hurting. Bullets might get blocked by the armor, and I was mostly healed up from the max doc, but I was still sore. Plus the worst part? All the blood dried. I grumbled as I ran a few fingers through my hair only to get tangled in the bloody matted strands. I wouldn't be able to take a nap without cleaning up first. So with a tired grunt I walked into the apartment's little bathroom that also had a washer-dryer. I stripped down to my panties and stuffed the dirty clothes into the washer, noticing my boots were going to need some serious attention too. Dang it. So as I started the cycle I grabbed some cleaning gunk and sat down in front of the washer with my boots, slowly wiping the poor abused footwear clean of dirty maelstrom blood. At least one benefit of being in such a hellish future is that bloodstains weren't an issue. The cleaning gunk I rubbed into the boots pulled the blood right out. Groaning, as my shoulders ached, I headed into a shower and dunked my head into the nice hot water for a moment, stretching a bit to start scrubbing the blood off. I zoned out for a bit, just letting the heat flow into my bones, and my arms. Cyberware felt cool to the skin and the night was getting cooler. So feeling the metal warm under the spray was actually pretty nice. My chest always feels a little chilly now with the cyberware installed. But right now it felt good, even if water flowing over my arms felt wrong. Which reminded me about what I had gained tonight. I couldn't help but whistle as I opened the alerts. I hadn't checked between looting and then June. The XP gains went down for a while. But it was the level I had gained that I was smiling about. 3 levels in one night? I giggled a little as I did a little dance under the shower. Hell yeah. Level up achieved. 1 stat point gained. 1 skill point gained. I giggled as I looked at the alert, glancing at my stat page just to see where I am at. Level 8. 2,509 thousandths. Very nice. Plus the 3 stat and skill points that were saved up. But that wasn't even close to everything. So many improvements. Athletics skill level up. It was midway down the list, so I guess all the running and jumping around I had done had some benefits. Athletics 6 was awesome. Handguns skill level up. Handguns had gone up to 6, which made sense. I had been firing the Boya so much lately. It really was an integral part of my toolkit. I really needed to take her apart and give her a thorough checkup. Even happier for me was Assault. Assault 4 thanks to my new Nekomata. I finally had a good weapon for leveling that skill. While ninjutsu and cool itself didn't level, Cold Blood had gone up to 7. Matching up with ninjutsu. So that was fun. Less pain for me was a good thing. Then I blinked. Then I blinked again. Then I dug into the alert list to figure out what the hell happened. This doesn't make any sense. Stupid system. I want to talk to an admin. I want a refund. I screeched a bit as practically jumped up and down in anger. Engineering experience gained. Skill not unlocked, no XP gained. Engineering unlocked. Engineering skill level up. Engineering skill level up. 1 perk point gained. I didn't build anything, but apparently grenades counted for engineering? What? How does that work? I had definitely used grenades before. Why was I only now getting XP for engineering if they were connected to that? I thought back to the last time I had used grenades, and I had to go all the way to the Scav raid. That's right, I had brought a few with me. Then I remembered how often the damn things were kicked back at me. Did I not actually hit anyone with a grenade? No, I had. The 2 at the end, the ones hiding in the computer room, I remembered throwing the grenade in and then leaping in after to shoot them. But they had been hiding in cover. I hadn't actually hit anyone with a grenade until now. I pushed my back up against the side of the shower and slid down it, groaning. If I had known that I could level engineering by killing people with grenades, I could have done so much. Now that I had accepted the alert, I could feel the information sliding in, and it was dense. Which was weird because usually the knowledge came right then, but I guess engineering was so dense, it waited until it was out of combat. Well, I guess the system wasn't too bad then. I would hold off on my demand for refunds for now. Besides, Motoko likes numbers. I blinked away water as I came back to myself after who knows how long when the washing machine beeped. I did a quick shampoo wash of my hair to make sure the blood was out, before jumping out of the shower and throwing my clothes into the dryer. Grabbing a few towels to start drying off, I wandered onto the couch and opened up the menu again. I hadn't gained any other stat increases. I had been hoping for a reflex improvement, but it hadn't come. Plenty of alerts for it, and it was getting close, but I wasn't there yet. Which opened up the next question. What do I spend my stat and skill points on? To start, I already knew where my stat points would go. A few button presses and I was on the adaptation page. Militech Condor adaptation, Militech Condor 010. I didn't hesitate. Not this time. Pushing the button. Spend 1 stat point to improve adaptation? Y/N. I hit the yes option, and instantly the numbers changed. Militech Condor adaptation, Militech Condor 1/10. I shivered. Not from the cold, the apartment was just fine, and I was warm from the shower. No, I shivered because the phantom limb I had been fighting against since I got my arm stopped. I had gotten, well, not used to it, but I got to the point I could move my arm without it throwing me off. And now? Now it was gone. I let out a noisy sigh as I flopped back on the couch. Wow, that felt nice. I brought my arm up to my face and opened and closed a fist. So much was still off. The sensations were wrong. The fact it was the wrong length, or that my fingers settled in the wrong spot, still nagged at me, made me feel like something was off. But now at least it felt like mine. I opened the page, adding another point. Militech Condor adaptation. Militech Condor 2/10. Muscles in my back unclenched. My shoulders, all mechanical at this point, shifted, settling differently. I gasped, an exhale of relief. I hadn't even realized I had kept my shoulders tense, trying to force them into the same position my old arms would have been, but the Condor had longer shoulders. I realized I had literally been hunching up on myself for days. I relaxed and it felt right? No. Normal. It felt normal. For the first time since I woke up on the Ripper's chair, I felt slightly normal. That little part of you that unclenches after something terrible when your body and mind finally realize everything is going to be okay. I was going to be okay. I swallowed a little as I threw my forearm over my eyes. June wasn't here, but I didn't want anyone to see me crying. Tears started falling and I very quickly started sobbing, crying and crying, an ugly noise escaping me as I let the pain that had infested me, made me so angry, and made me want to just stay cold forever slowly seep away. As I felt my heart unfreeze fully for the first time. I hadn't even realized I had been doing it. How could I? Cold blood wasn't just some weird game of power, it was a skill. Knowledge that I was practically a master at. It was the equivalent to spending years and years hardening your heart, freezing your emotions so that nothing could interfere with your thoughts. Of course the trauma would make me fall back on it, even subconsciously. It wasn't like I could split where Motoko ends, and the knowledge I had gained through the system began. There was no difference. It was my knowledge and experience. I just had a lot of weird skills, extra experience. So I finally subconsciously relaxed, felt safe. So I let it go, and so I bawled. The stress and horror of what happened, my worry for June, and just the pain all pouring out of me. I cried and I cried. Until finally I just couldn't anymore. Thankfully I was already wrapped up in a towel so I was able to wipe my now gooey arm, and my gooey face. Blowing my nose loud and wetly let me breath again as I stood up. I went back to the laundry room, and threw both towels in, after quickly washing my face, and my arm. I felt good. Cathartic. I grabbed some comfy old clothes out of what June had grabbed from the apartment and flopped onto the couch. I turned on the TV and just switched it to some cartoon channel. Something mindless. I got comfy as it played, as I looked at the stat menu again. I still had one stat point left. I thought about it. I could use it for reflex, which was a struggle to level, or tech, which would be great. But this was more important. I wasn't some idiot edge runner wanting to burn out in a blaze of glory. I wasn't. I really wasn't. I wanted to live, because you can't have fun when you die. So I decided I would spend it on adaptation again. But not to my arms. Spend one stat point to improve adaptation? I accepted, and my stats changed. Kiroshi MK1 adaptation, Kiroshi MK1 half. I blinked. Then I blinked again. Then again. It was still weird, but that cold sensation of my eyelids flowing over a waterproof eye didn't bother me as much. It wasn't perfect, but it wasn't like much was. But when I closed my eyes, it didn't feel uncomfortable. It didn't make me itch or want to leave my eyes open all night. Without my auto-sleep, I very likely would not have been able to sleep well with my Kiroshi. But now? I relaxed, curled up in a big fluffy blanket watching cartoons. I dozed off, for the first time in a while, sleeping peacefully without needing to insta-sleep.